samsaradava nalalita loka tranaya karuna guna gunatvam
samsaradava nalalita loka tranaya karuna
Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Varitra Madhyan Manasorasena
Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Varitra Madhyan Manasorasena
Romanchakam Shutarangavajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Romanchakam Sutaravana Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityananam Shingarathan Mandira Marjanado
Nityanana Singaratanma Niramajanado
Yuktasya Bhakam Sanyanjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Yuktasya Bhakam Sanyanjatopi Vande Guru Shri
Chaturvida Shri Bhagavad Prasado Swadhana Triptan Hari Bhaksha Sandram
Chaturvida Shri Bhagavad Prasado Swadhana Triptan Hari Bhaksha Sandram
Vitraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Vidvaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Shri Radhika Madhava Yurapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna
Shri Radhika Madhavaya Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupanana
Pratikshanasvadana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Pratikshana Sadhananupasa Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Nikunjayo no Rachikeli Sethai Yayali Viryukira Pekshaniya
Nikunjayo no Ratikeli Sita Jajari Vejo Kirantekshaniya
Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande
prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati kutopi
yasya prasada bhagavat prasada yasya prasada nagati kutopi
jayam stuvam stasya satri sadyam vande guru shri charanaravinda
jayam stuvam stasya satri sadyam vande guru shri charanaravinda
vande guru shri charanaravinda 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 vande guru shri charanaravinda
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namo Krishna Krishnaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatharine
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Patyatya Deshatharine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna
Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Rama
Rama
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram,
Jaya Radha, Nilamadva Radha, Nilamadva Radhe.
Jaya Radha, Nila Madhava, Radha, Nila Madhava, Radhe.
Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe.
Jaya Radhe,
Jaya Radhe.
Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe.
Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra.
Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan.
Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman.
Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshmana.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha.
Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Gaurnita, Jaya Gaurnita, Jaya Gaurnita, Jaya Gaurnita.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Jai Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Prabhajaka Charasutara Sarashishi Mati Divine Grace of Bhajravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapaka Char Vaishnava Sramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhakta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Nama Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrendi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Jai Paramadayal Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Prema Nama Sankirtane Kajanat Prema Purushottama Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Harima Varanavatari Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jai Ki Jai Jogadharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Priyapnidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kunda Samakun Giriraj Godhan Ki Jai Shri Vrajabim Vrindavan Mathurdham Ki Jai The Lord Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Maya Punavadipeka Chakradam Ki Jai Paramakaruna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Pradham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspatra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Prindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mati Radharani Ki Jai Shamaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanandi I want to sing Tulsi. What do you want to do?
Sorry?
You want to sing Tulsi?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah? Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Jato jato jami tato nishinga Vahi nishinga nugaye nishinga Narashinga made sharanam prapade Advaita Shinga Danita Hiranyaka Shinga Janovinga Desavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Advaita Shinga Dalita Hiranyaka Shinga Janovinga Desavadita Jaya Lakshmi Narashinha Jaya Lakshmi Narashinha Jaya Lakshmi Narashinha Jaya Lakshmi Narashinha Jaya Bhakta Jai Shri Bhakti Pata Sarvinash Nakari Shindale Bhagwan Ki Jai Bhakti Sister Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Purani Pramanande Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prari Devi Satabhataye Namah Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prari Devi Satabhataye Namah Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prari Devi Satabhataye Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Ye Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Ye Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha যে তোমার শরণ লয় তারা বাঞ্ছা পূর্ণ হো কৃপা করে করো তারে বৃন্দাবনবাসী।
কৃপা করে করতারে বৃন্দাবনবাসী।
মোরাইয়া বিলাস বিলাস কুঞ্জে দিও বা নায়নে সদা যুগল রূপরাশি। নিবেদন ধরো সাখের অনুগত করো সেবাধিকারো দিয়ে কারো নিজ দাসী। বিনা কৃষ্ণ দাসে কো এই যে না মোরা হয়। শ্রী রাধা গোবিন্দা প্রেমে সদা যে নবাসী। শ্রী রাধা গোবিন্দা প্রেমে সদা যে নবাসী। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणाशङ्के प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणाशङ्के प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणाशङ्के प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे।
जयो तुलसी महारानी जयो तुलसी महारानी जयो तुलसी महारानी जयो तुलसी महारानी।
जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी
जयो वृंदा देवी जयो वृंदा देवी जयो वृंदा देवी जयो वृंदा देवी।
जय वृंदा देवी जय
Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada.
Jai Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jaya Prabhupada.
Jayo Jayo Gurudev, 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 Jayo Jayo Gurudev.
Jai Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jai Jaya Gurudev. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prare Devi Shatavataye Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prare Devi Shatavataye Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prare Devi Shatavataye Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Overtake shelter of years wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him in making president of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavadam Ziluvaj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. He's very full of the Lord servant Krishna praise. May I always sing in love with Shri Radha. Jeshmati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Shri Krishna ki jai. Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtan. His Christ in the heart of the dust happening for years. And his vanquishes the fire of a conditional life by repeated birth and death. His Sankirtan moment is the primary addiction for humanity at large. But his praise raised the benediction moment. It is the life of all transcendent knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendent bliss and enables us to fully test the nectar which always quenches. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can prevent all benediction to living beings. And thus you have recognized the names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendent names, you have invested all your transcendent angels. There is no even hiding possible to chant these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. Let us come forward to the time of attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord, on a state of mind, thinking oneself Lord and strong and straight. One should be more turned than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige. One should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your positive devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other, I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please bring me out from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the yellow street. Oh, when my eyes will be liquid with tears of love, flowing constantly when I change for the name. When my voice
Shook up and when the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name.
Oh,
Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering
the
the
moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I don't know what like Krishna is my Lord, and it should remain so. Even if someone does him roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, but he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditioned. Shri 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 Krishna ki jai. Namo Mahabharata. The art and offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided, they are as follows. One, the word is dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. Two, it's the names of the demigods and Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma to be equal to independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. Three, to display the orders of the spiritual master. Four, to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures of the sons of Vedic version. Five, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. Six,
give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. Commit sinful activities in the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of auspicious ritualistic activities or activities of karma kanda. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. To not have complete faith in chanting holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It's also an offense being attentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto the Vaishnavas. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripasindarbhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha vaishnava thakur ki jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutri Sumata Bhakti Vedanta Swanta. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Vichayani Visesari. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmad Yasha Yato Nivayad Itaratas Charte Survikyaswarad. Tene Brahma Hidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Atsuraya. Tejo Vadimadam Yatam Tejo Vari Madam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha Dam Nasrina Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma pujita kaitro tra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapa trayon mulan Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vapurir Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bihi Sususubhistakshanam. Completely reject all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpaturur galitam phalam sukhamukhat amrita dravya samyatam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho raska bhuvibhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the Zarathustra Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hirdiyantak Stohi Padrani Vidunoti Suhit Satam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Nasta presu bhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistake. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye cheta etaranavidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance.
one becomes free from the modes of passion.
And thus, material lust and avarice are diminished.
And thus, material lust and avarice.
Evam prasana manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the signs of God perfectly. Vidyate Hridaya Grantis Chidyante Sarvasamsaya Siyante Jashikarmani Drista Evat Manisware. Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet. Such spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged by all. This is acknowledged by all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day I should offer my respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadirade Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Riksha Laksavrite Supurid Surabi Abhibali Antam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvananto Aravinda Dalayataksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobham Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Mamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranay Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalitam Niyata Prakasam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Rittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastukoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyastiyat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasora Chayatum Jagadanda Kotim Yaschaktirasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktal Yameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabis Tabirya Eva Nijarupataya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Yamena Tistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Sambhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhuto Jagadanda Koti Koti Svasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagaranda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vitayamana Sattva Valambi Parasattvam Visuddha Sattvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasu Ya praninam pratifalam smaratam upetya. Lilayatena bhuvanani jayat yajasram. Jayat jayat. Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Golokanamni nichadamni talechatasya. Devi Mahesa Haridama Sute Sutesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vitascha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shasti Stati Pralaya Sadhana Saktireka Chaeva Yasya Bhavanani Vibharti Durga Ichanu Rupam Abhyasya Chichestatesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Vishesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetoho Yasambutam Apitata Samapaiti Karya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Diparcha Eva Hita Santanam Abhyapetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupaha Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nishvasitakala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Nataha Vishnur Mahansahi Yasya Kala Vishesho Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Najesu Tejaha Swiyam Kiyat Prakatiyat Apitadvadatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidhanukarta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvandve Pranama Samaye Susganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahi Gaganam Ammu Marudisascha Kalastatatma Manasitti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yachakshur Esa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Sesa Tejaha Yasyagya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Srutayastapamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Deyascha Jivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastvindra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswakarma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidahati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhavahai Sanchitya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiyakanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumis Chintamani Ganamayi Toyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Api Vamsi Priyasaki Chid Anandam Roti Param Apitad Aswadyam Apicha Sayacha Shiradi Bihi Swavati Surabi Vyascha Sumahan Nime Sardakyuva Rajati Nahiya Trapid Samaya Bhaje Svita Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golakamitiyam Vedantaste Santakshiti Virala Charakuti Paye Shishopanishad Ki Jai Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Ishvaishamidam Sarvam Jatkinja Jagatyam Jagat Tena Taktena Bunjitaha Magridaha Kishasvidanam Kurvan Evaha Karmani Jijiva Chekchatam Samaha Evam Tvayinanyatetus Tina Karma Lipite Nare Karmani Asurya Namate Loka Andena Tamasavritaha Tamste Pritya Bhikichanti Ye Kechatma Hano Janaha Anikad Anajad Ekamanaso Javio Naina Devam Apravam Pravam Asata Davato Nyana Teti Tistat Tasminapo Matariswadadati Anajad Ekamanaso Tadijiti Tanejiti Tadure Tadvantike Tadantarasya Sarvasya Tadu Sarvasya Bayataha Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Evanu Pasyati Sarvabhute Suchatmanam Tatona Vijagupsate. I'm sorry, yeah. Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Budvijanataha Tatra Komaha Kaha Sukha Ekadvam Anupasyataha Saprayagat Chukamakayam Avrinam Asnaviram Sudam Apapavidam Kavir Manisi Paribu Swayambhu Yatatat Yaturutan Vyadadat Chasvatip Yaha Samabhyaha Andam tamaha pravisanti ye vidyam upasyate tato bhuya vitetamo yayu vidyayam rataha. Anya devhur vidyaya anya dahura vidyaya iti susrumadiranam yenastad vichichaksire. Vidyam shavidyam jayas yastad vedubhayam saha avidyaya miritam tirtva vidyayam ritamasnute. Andham tamaha pravisanti ye vidyam upasyate tato bhuya ivate tamo ya yusambutam rataha. Anya devhur sambhavat anya dahur sambhavat iti susrumadiranam yenastad vichachaksire. Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastad vedubhayam saha vinasena mritum tirtva sambhutam ritamasnute. Hiranmayana patrena satyasya pitam mukam tatpam pusam apavrinu satyadharmaya dristaye.
Hiranmayena patrina satyaya pitam mukam tatvam pusham avavrino satyadamasya distahi.
Pusane kaseya surya prajapatya vyuha rasmin samahate jo yate rupam kayanatamam tate pasyami yo savaso purushaha suhamasmi.
Pusan akarshiyama surya prajapatya viyorasmi samatejo
Te rupam kayanatamam tate pasyami yo savaso purushaha. Vayuranilam amritam atedam basmantam sariram om krato smara kritam smara krato smara kritam smara.
Vayuranelam amritam adedam basmatam shariram om kratushmara kritam smara kratushmara kritam smara.
Om agnina supataraya supatraya asman visvani deva vayunani vidvan yo dajma juhuranamino bhuyastam te nama uktim vidama om tatsat. Naya supataraya asman visvani deva vayunani vidvan yo dajma juhuranamino bhuyastam te nama uktim vidama. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, verse number 14. Tripistapuru Bayaha Sanashingarupam Kritvap Ramad Burukuti Dramstra Karala Vaktram. Daityendram asu gadaya vipatantam arad. Uro nipatya vidadara nakai spurantam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The personality Godhead assumed the incarnation of Nrsingadev in order to vanquish the great fears of the demigods. He killed the king of the demons Hiranyakashipu, who challenged the Lord with a club in his hand. By placing the demon on his thighs and piercing him with his nails, rolling his eyebrows in anger and showing his fearful teeth and mouth. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The history of Hiranyakashipu and his great devotee son, Prahlada Maharaj, is narrated in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hiranyakashipu became very powerful by material achievements and thought himself to be immortal by the grace of Brahmaji. Brahmaji declined to award him the benediction of immortality because he himself is not an immortal being. But Hiranyakashipu derived Brahmaji's benediction in a roundabout way, almost equal to becoming an immortal being. Hiranyakashipu was sure that he would not be killed by any man or demigod or by any kind of known weapon, nor would he die in day or night. The Lord, however, assumed the incarnation of half man and half lion, which was beyond the imagination of a materialistic demon like Hiranyakashipu, and thus, keeping pace with the benediction of Brahmaji, the Lord killed him. He killed him on his lap so that he was killed neither on the land, nor on the water, nor in the sky. The demon was pierced by Nrsinga's nails, which were beyond the human weapons imaginable by Hiranyakashipu. The literal meaning of Hiranyakashipu is one who is after gold and a soft bed, the ultimate aim of all materialistic men. Such demoniac men who have no relationship with God gradually become puffed up by material acquisitions and begin to challenge the authority of the Supreme Lord and torture those who are devotees of the Lord. Prahlada Maharaj happened to be the son of Hiranyakashipu, and because the boy was a great devotee, his father tortured him to the best of his ability. In this extreme situation, the Lord assumed the incarnation of Nrsingadeva, and just to finish the enemy of the demigods, the Lord killed Hiranyakashipu in a manner beyond the demon's imagination. Materialistic plans of godless demons are always frustrated by the all-powerful Lord. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The personality of Godhead assumed the incarnation of Nrsingadeva in order to vanquish the great fears of the demigods. He killed the king of the demons, Hiranyakashipu, who challenged the Lord with a club in his hand by placing the demon on his thighs and piercing him with his nails, rolling his eyebrows in anger and showing his fearful teeth and mouth. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is the great story of Prahlad Maharaj, the boy saint. He was educated in the womb of his mother by Narada Muni, which is proof of prenatal consciousness. In other words, the child is conscious in the womb of the mother and can be taught. This is unimaginable for materialists. They think the child is not born until it's actually, or it doesn't exist until it's actually born or pushed out of the womb. And therefore, they have a chance to kill it without becoming prosecuted because of fake concepts that were made up by demons. So when the demons and the scientists and doctors join forces, they end up with a holocaust, a genocide of millions of babies who are helpless. And their mother joins the demons to kill them. So it's horrible, absolutely horrible. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th Canto, Chapter 5, it says, Prahlad Maharaj did not carry out the orders of his teachers. Now, this is a very important point. Today, we force our kids to go to schools where they're taught by demons, like the sons of Sukracharya, Sanda and Amarka, who tried to teach Prahlad Maharaj to become a demon. But he refused to carry out the orders of his teachers, for he was always engaged in worshipping Lord Vishnu, as described in this chapter. Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad Maharaj, even by having a snake bite him, and by putting him under the feet of elephants. Yet he was unsuccessful. Why? Because Prahlad was protected by Krishna. Krishna promises to protect his devotee. Hiranyakashipu's spiritual master, Sukracharya. Sukra means semen. So he's the teacher of seminal, let's say, materialism. So Sukracharya had two sons named Sanda and Amarka, to whom Prahlad Maharaj was entrusted for education. Although the teachers tried to educate the boy Prahlada in politics, economics, and other material activities, he did not care for their instructions. Instead, he continued to be a pure devotee. Prahlada Maharaja never liked the idea of discriminating between one's friends and enemies because he was spiritually inclined. He was equal toward everyone. So that's a symptom of a devotee. He's equal to everyone. He sees everyone's relationship with Krishna. And it's an eternal relationship. It can't be changed. So he doesn't see the body, he doesn't see bodily differences, he doesn't see in terms of ethnicity or nationalism or chauvinism. He sees people as the eternal servant of Krishna, and he sees the soul, not the body. The body is changing, but the soul is always the same. It's part and parcel of Krishna. So instead, he continued to be a pure devotee. Prahlad Maharaj never liked the idea of discriminating between one's friends and enemies. That's what politicians do. They discriminate between friends and enemies. So for the Democrat, Republicans are bad, Democrats are good. For the Republicans, the Democrats are bad, the Republicans are good. So this duality seeing things in terms of friends and enemies, that is politics, not Krishna consciousness. Once upon a time, Hiranyakashipu inquired from his son what the best thing was that he had learned from his teachers. Prahlad Maharaj replied that a man engrossed in the material consciousness of duality, thinking, this is mine and that belongs to my enemy, should give up his householder life and go to the forest to worship the Supreme Lord. When Hiranyakashipu heard this from his son about devotional service, he decided that this boy had been polluted by some friend in school. Thus he advised the teachers to take care of the boy so that he would not become a Krishna-conscious devotee. However, when the teachers inquired from Prahlad Maharaj why he was going against their teachings, Prahlad Maharaj taught the teachers that the mentality of ownership is false, and that he was therefore trying to become an unalloyed devotee of Lord Vishnu. The teachers, being very angry at this answer, chastised and threatened the boy with many fearful conditions. They taught him to the best of their ability and then brought him before his father. Hiranyakashipu affectionately took his son Prahlada on his lap and then inquired from him what the best thing was that he had learned from his teachers. As usual, Prahlada Maharaj began praising the 9 processes of devotional service, such as Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. Thus the king of the demons, Hiranyakashipu, being extremely angry, chastised the teachers, Sanda and Amarka, for having wrongly trained Prahlada Maharaj. The so-called teachers informed the king that Prahlada Maharaj was automatically a devotee and did not listen to their instructions. When they proved themselves innocent, Hiranyakashipu inquired from Prahlada where he had learned Vishnu Bhakti. Prahlada Maharaj replied that those who are attached to family life do not develop Krishna consciousness, either personally or collectively. Instead, they suffer repeated birth and death in the material world and continue simply observing the Jude. Prahlada explained that the duty of a man, that the duty of every man is to take shelter of a pure devotee and thus become eligible to understand Krishna consciousness. Enraged at this answer, Hiranyakashipu threw Prahlad Maharaj from his lap, since Prahlad was so treacherous that he had become a devotee of Vishnu who had killed his uncle Hiranyaksha. Hiranyakashipu asked his assistants to kill him. The assistants of Hiranyakashipu struck Prahlada with sharp weapons, threw him under the feet of the elephants, subjected him to hellish conditions, threw him from the peak of a mountain, and tried to kill him in thousands of other ways, but they were unsuccessful. Hiranyakashipu therefore became increasingly afraid of his son Prahlada Maharaj and arrested him. The sons of Hiranyakashipu's spiritual master, Sukracharya, began teaching Prahlada in their own way, but Prahlad Maharaj did not accept their instructions. While the teachers were absent from the classroom, Prahlada Maharaj began to preach Krishna consciousness in the school, and by his instructions, all his friends, the sons of Brahmanas, became devotees like him. Well, I only wish that our kids would like Prahlad Maharaj, not being afraid to be Krishna conscious, being proud of it, and not proud, but being very dedicated to it. So it says that the great saint Narada Muni said, the demons headed by Hiranyakashipu accepted Sukracharya as their priest for ritualistic ceremonies. Sukracharya's 2 sons, Sanda and Marka, lived near Hiranyakashipu's palace. Prabhupada writes, the beginning of the life story of Prahlada is recounted as follows. Sukracharya became the priest of the atheists, especially Hiranyakashipu, and thus his 2 sons, Sanda and Marka, resided near Hiranyakashipu's residence. Sukracharya should not have become the priest of Hiranyakashipu because Hiranyakashipu and his followers were all atheists. A Brahmana should become the priest of a person interested in the advancement of spiritual culture. The very name Sukracharya however, indicates a person interested in obtaining benefits for his sons and descendants, regardless of how the money comes. A real Brahmana would not become a priest for an atheistic man. Prahlad Maharaj was already educated in devotional life, but when his father sent him to those two sons of Sukracharya to be educated, they accepted him at their school along with the other sons of the Asuras. Prahlad has certainly heard and recited the topics of politics and economics taught by the teachers, but he understood that political philosophy involves considering someone a friend and someone an enemy, and thus he did not like it. Prabhupada writes, politics involves accepting one group of men as enemies and another group as friends. Everything in politics is based on this philosophy, and the entire world, especially at the present, is engrossed in it. The public is concerned with friendly countries and friendly groups, or enemy countries and enemy groups. But as stated in Bhagavad Gita, a learned person does not make distinctions between enemies and friends. Devotees, especially, do not create friends and enemies. A devotee sees the very living being is that every living being is part and parcel of Krishna, Mamayavam so Jiva Bhuta. Therefore, a devotee treats friends and enemies equally by trying to educate them both in Krishna consciousness. Of course, atheistic men do not follow the instructions of a pure devotee, but instead consider a devotee their enemy. A devotee, however, never creates a situation of friendship and enmity. Although Prahlad Maharaj was obliged to hear the instructions of Sunda and Amarka, he did not like the philosophy of friends and enemies, which forms the basis of politics. He was not interested in this philosophy. So right from the beginning, we see that atheistic philosophy of life, eat, drink, be merry, and don't care about death. When you die, everything ends. And we all started accidentally, and eventually we came from monkeys to human beings. And when you die, nothing happens, everything is over. And all these nonsense ideas which are prevalent today. This is a description of people today. Associating with such people is very dangerous for one's spiritual life. Of course, parents don't realize this, and they're happy to see their kids being contaminated by the demons. But someone who is conscious should read carefully the life of Prahlad Maharaj and understand that because he was instructed by Narada Muni in the womb of his mother, he rejected modern education, he rejected atheism, he rejected politics, he rejected all these things because they were against Krishna consciousness, not for Krishna consciousness. So today, when they teach gender equality in schools, when they teach that only black lives matter, other lives don't matter, and when they teach things like Republicans are bad, Democrats are good, this thing, that thing, and white people are bad, and there has to be what you call equality. I mean, not equality, but equity. Equity means black people should go first. They should be hired before white people. That's what it actually means. And they're teaching equity everywhere now, in school and in companies and all kinds of establishments. You have to hire black people first, not white people. So what does this mean? This means that they're creating friends and enemies. White people are bad, black people are good. And then before black people are bad, white people are good. So this friends and enemies, this is all politics, and it creates enmity, it creates hatred and fear and so many things. So Prahlad Maharaj replied, O best of the Asuras, king of the demons. And he's talking to his father. As far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person, the previous verse said, Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad, what's the best thing you learn? So Hiranyakashipu did not ask his young son anything that would be very difficult for him to answer. Instead, he gave the boy a chance to speak plainly about whatever he thought might be best. Prahlad Maharaj, of course, being a perfect devotee, knew everything and could say what the best part of life is. In the Vedas it is said, Yasmin Vigyate Sarvam Evam Vigyatam Bhavati. If one properly understands God, he can understand any subject matter very nicely. Sometimes we have to challenge big scientists and philosophers, but by the grace of Krishna, we emerge successful. It is impossible, practically speaking, for ordinary men to challenge scientists or philosophers concerning genuine knowledge. But a devotee can challenge them because the best part of everything is known to a devotee by the grace of Krishna, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:11, Tesam evanukam partam aham agyanajam tama nasayami atmabhavasto jnanadipena bhasvato. Krishna, who is situated in the core of everyone's heart, is the Supersoul. He dissipates all the ignorance from the heart of a devotee. As a special favor, he enlightens the devotee with all knowledge by putting before him the torch of light. Prahlad Maharaj therefore knew the best of knowledge, and when his father inquired from him, Prahlad gave him that knowledge. Prahlad Maharaj was able to solve the most difficult parts of problems because of his advanced Krishna consciousness. Therefore he replied as follows. So we see, if you want your child to be educated, you should teach the child that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one's equal or greater than him. Everyone is subordinate to him. And the purpose of life is to please Krishna by acts of devotion, prompted and instructed by bona fide Shiksha and Diksha gurus. And therefore one should only associate with bona fide devotees, and with the non-devotees one should be merciful and try to help them to become Krishna conscious. There you go. And people who are actually demoniac, one should avoid their association. So, what does Prahlad say? So, Prabhupada says here, that because Prahlad was instructed in spiritual life by Narada Muni, he was able to go up against his teachers and even his father. His father was a very smart man, but he was a materialist, and Prahlad was able to defeat him. So Prahlad Maharaj replied, O best of the Asuras, which is not really a compliment, it's actually an insult, but it sounds good, O best of the Asuras. That means he's the worst of the worst. King of the demons. As far as I am, you see, you have to say, O Father, it says, O best of the Asuras, O King of the demons, right? As far as I have learned from my spiritual master, so now he's talking about Narada Muni, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. So when people get married, oftentimes I perform marriages. The real message of the marriage is your suffering is going to begin from the moment you say, I do. But that's not what people are expecting. They're expecting, from the rest of my life, I'm going to be happy because I'm marrying this lady or this man, and they are, ideal, and they're so nice and kind and handsome. And it's all nonsense. It's just beginning of suffering, not the end of suffering. One should give up this position. So in other words, he's saying, King of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest or the vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavana, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Hiranyakashipu thought that Prahlada, being nothing but a small boy with no actual experience, might reply with something pleasing, but nothing practical. Prahlad Maharaj, however, being an exalted devotee, had acquired all the qualities of education. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat yakinchana sarver gunas tatra samasate sura aha harava bhaktasya kuto mahat guna manoratanasati dhavato bayi. One who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consistently manifests all good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualifications, because he's engaged by mental concoction in material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12. So-called educated philosophers and scientists who are simply on the mental platform cannot distinguish between what is actually sat, eternal, and what is asat, temporary. The Vedic injunction is asatoma jyotirgama. Everyone should give up the platform of temporary existence and approach the eternal platform. The soul is eternal, and topics concerning the eternal soul are actually knowledge. Elsewhere it is said, apasyatam atmatattvam grihesu grihamedinam. Those who are attached to the bodily conception of life and who thus stick to life as a grihasta or householder on the platform of material sense enjoyment cannot see the welfare of the eternal soul. Prahlad Maharaj confirmed this by saying that if one wants success in life, he should immediately understand from the right sources what his self-interest is and how he should mold his life in spiritual consciousness. One should understand himself to be part and parcel of Krishna and thus completely take shelter of his lotus feet for guaranteed spiritual success. Everyone in the material world is in the bodily conception, struggling hard for existence, life after life. Prahlada Maharaj therefore recommended that to stop the material condition of repeated birth and death, one should go to the forest, Vana. So, you see, the point made here is apasyatam atmatattvam grihesu grihamedinam. Those who are attached to the bodily conception of life and who thus stick to life as a grihasta or householder on the platform of material sense enjoyment cannot see the welfare of the eternal soul. So there's a difference between grihasta and grihamedi. The grihamedi is one who thinks, I am this body, this is my wife, these are my children, we are all white or black or yellow or green, and this is our ethnic group, and this is our nation, and our loyalties are with people of the same type of body that I have, or same type of ideas of sense gratification that I have. So this is nonsense. And it's better just to go to the forest, give it up immediately, because it's not going to lead to anything good. It's just going to be more suffering. Whereas a grihasta is someone who understands, I'm not this body. I have a soul, but I right now am entangled in this material world because I gave up Krishna and wanted to become a little Krishna myself. But this is nonsense. And this body is also nonsense. It's an instrument that I can use for Krishna consciousness. In that case, it can be useful. Otherwise, if I use it just for sense gratification, it's complete nonsense, and I should give it up immediately. However, if I live a Krishna conscious life with my wife and kids, and I teach my kids what is the truth, not that, oh, you got to, become an IT person and get a job in Microsoft and make so much money, blah, blah, blah. It's all nonsense. Better watch what's wrong with your kid becoming a pujari the rest of their life and serving the deities or distributing Prabhupada's books or being a preacher, or protecting cows. Was there something wrong with that? So this is the point that we have to be convinced of this philosophy. Otherwise, Look at Prahlad Maharaj. From a material point of view, it looked like he was going to be a complete failure because he rejected material education. So how is he going to get a job? Well, he's going to get a job or a livelihood not by science and technology and reason and logic. He's going to get, because Krishna promises to protect his devotee and supply whatever the devotee needs, the minimal needs of the devotee. So one has to be sure of this. So it says, Ananda Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Paryapasati Tesam Nitya Bhayuktanam Yogashemam Vahamyaham. Very important verse. And it says that Krishna says that he will provide what the devotee lacks and preserve what the devotee has. So what does that mean exactly? That means that he will make Krishna consciousness easily available to the devotee and protect the devotee so he doesn't fall down from Krishna consciousness. That's what it actually means. Now, a lower understanding of it is, well, if you don't have enough money to pay your rent, somehow or other Krishna will give you that money. And and Krishna will protect you so that the hurricane doesn't blow your house away or the flood doesn't blow your house away. And it'll protect your kids and it'll protect your car. And of course, you have to go to the temple and do car puja. And then he'll do this and he'll do that. And, you don't have anything to worry about. That's the lower understanding. The higher understanding is when he says that Ananda Chintayantamam Ye Jana Praryapasati Tesam Nitya Bhayuktanam Yoga Shema Vahamyaha. So there's yoga and shema. So yoga means that he will make Krishna consciousness easily available. And shema means that he'll protect the devotee so he doesn't fall down. That's the real meaning of that verse. Right? Okay, so therefore, if we believe this, then we're not worried. We know that, when I joined Krishna consciousness, I had to give up everything I had materially. And I didn't have anything for many years. It was just going on Sankirtan and being satisfied with a little bit of prasadam and a little place to sleep and waking up early and taking cold showers and all these things. And I liked it, actually. It was very nice. When I got married, I thought, oh, well, maybe I should get married, And then I was advised by my temple president to get married. Then I was in a dilemma at that point because I couldn't live like a brahmachari anymore. I had to live with my wife. And to live with my wife, I had to have some place to stay. And I had to pay rent. And I couldn't ask the temple for the rent. At those days, we're not allowed to live in the temple if you're married. And you have to have a job. So, I had given up my academic life, so the only solution I had was to start a business, or work for someone else. I didn't want to work for anybody else. So I started my own business, and believe me, Krishna helped me at every step. I didn't know anything about business. I was not trained in business at all. But Krishna helped me at every step. I don't want to go through all the steps, but I was able to start a business, and it became very successful, and I was able to pay for the rent and the car and the washing machine and the insurance and all that stuff, And it was a struggle all the time. And there were so many problems, with business and hiring people. It's just a gigantic struggle. I put up with it because it was my duty. And then having children is very, very stressful, for the wife and for the husband. And there's always fear that something will happen to the kids, so you have to protect them. And it was like one problem after another, it never ended. See, and it's still going on, right? So, therefore, we have to understand the value of developing Krishna consciousness. Even even like Prabhupada also, he went through all married life for, 30, 40 years, and eventually he gave it up completely. And that's what we should do. We should give it up completely at one point. Not before the kids are grown up and married, but once they're married and not dependent on the parents anymore, husband and wife should take up vanaprastha as soon as possible and live in holy places and just do service and get detached from home and hearth. And then husband should eventually take sannyas, and wife should go and live with her children or in a holy place, and both live like sannyasis. That's the proper way. And Krishna will help at every step if that's our desire, to have a pure life. Okay, so therefore, where's that verse? Ananya Chintayantamam. I think it's the 9th chapter. Let's see, where is it? What?
No, say it goes. Ananya Chintayantamam ye jana pariyupasati nityam.
Ananya Chintayantamam ye jana pariyupasati. Tesam nitya biyuktanam yogashama viham yaham. I'm looking for it in the 9th chapter. I might be wrong. Yeah, it's not there. Okay, let me look it up. Ananya Chintayantamam. Sanskrit verses. It's a good thing they have this index. Yeah, 922. How come I missed it? I was right on. Oh, I see it, yeah. 922. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So let's read this purport. This is very important purport. One who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours a day, being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious and full of spiritual potencies, which make the devotee perfect in self-realization, so that his only desire is to achieve the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a devotee undoubtedly approaches the Lord without difficulty. This is called yoga. By the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. Shema refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The Lord helps the devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable conditioned life. There you are. So in Krishna consciousness, we see devotees, they join, they live like brahmacharis, brahmacharis, then they get married. And then something happens, even though they have kids, this thing, that thing, they get a divorce. Right? And the devotees, sometimes devotees would probably write to Prabhupada and say, Prabhupada, I really don't want to live with my wife anymore. She's a horrible person, and she's just Maya Devi, and, I can't be Krishna conscious, right? So Prabhupada would reject it. He said, no, you made a vow to live with your wife, And then somehow or other, they leave their wife, right? And Prabhupada writes them a letter, so you should go back immediately to your wife. Or the wife leaves the husband. So you should go back immediately to your husband, and just practice Krishna consciousness. Everything will be all right. So what happens? Then the person said, no, I'm going to go live in Radha Kund and just chant, 64 rounds a day and eat very little, and just live like a Babaji. So that Prabhupada also rejected that. He said, that's nonsense. And then after doing that for a couple of years, all of a sudden you find out he got married again and went back to America and got a job. So the whole thing is nonsense. See? And that's not what Prabhupada wanted. And at a certain point, Prabhupada said, I'm not performing any more marriages. It's finished. If you want to get married, you go out, get a legal marriage. But I'm not endorsing any more marriages because it's a joke. You get married, then you want another wife. You can't have another wife, and then you leave this wife, and then you go away and you get married again somewhere else, and then you come back, and this Prabhupada was very disgusted with this type of nonsense. Okay, so we'll stop right there, and we're going to continue on this verse for a couple days because there's so much to discuss about it. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Bando Mui Sabadana Mate Mando Muhi Savadana Mate Janara Prasade Bhai He Bhavatori Ajaye Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vaikya Chitit Goriya Arana Koriya Mane Asa Orana Koriya Manea Sa Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttamagati Ye prasade pure sarva asa Aranakor E prasade pure sarvasa Chakshudana dilaje janmi Prabhu se Chakshudana dilaje janmi Prabhu se Divya gyan nirde pokasito Divya Gyani Prakasito Prema Bhakti Jate Avidya Vinasajate Vedika Jannara Charito Vedika Jannara Charito Shiguru Karuna Sindhu Adana Jannara Bandhu Lokana Lokera Jivana Lokena Lokera Jivana Ha Prabhu Kora Duya Deya More Padachaya Shiguru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu Lokena Lokera Jivana Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Teha Muri Padachaya Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha Muri Padachaya Ebeas Kusakti Bhuvana Ebeas Due Pade Laila Sarana Due Pade Laila Sarana Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Bola Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajikchara Ashtatad Satarashishi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Udan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to Assembled Devotee, all glories to Assembled Devotee, all glories to Assembled Devotee, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu, Hare Krishna Prestaya, Bhakti Vishwamati Bhaktivedanta Swami. Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Vicharini, Nirvisesa Sunyavadi, Paskati Rasatani. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material sufferings and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of his lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namaste Saraswati Devi.